he had become like really obsessed with death. And not only that, he started to do a lot of marijuana. Hi, I'm Lila.
And I'm Chansey.
And this is For Criming Out Loud.
This is For Criming Out Loud. I was going to mention that, I don't know, I feel like this was international news, so I feel like people know about this, but there was like an attempted terrorist attack at a Taylor Swift concert in Austria a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah, I kind of heard about that.
Yeah, there were like
I
three
knew that it
teenagers.
happened, and that was the end of it for me. Three teenagers.
Austrian authorities like found them with guns and explosives and stuff, and they were planning on attacking the people outside of the stadium because there's like 60,000 people in the stadium, but then for some reason 30,000 people show up outside the stadium to just like listen in, and so they were just going to attack those people.
That's wild. Yeah. 30,000 people outside the stadium.
I was pretty shocked by that. That's a lot of people. That's like 100,000 people in one spot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Anyways. All for T Swift.
Yeah, but it was kind of crazy because one of the kids, the last kid they arrested, he actually was like a legitimate terrorist. Like he had connections
right on
to some Middle Eastern groups.
Okay.
So that was a little scary.
So were these like Austrians? That's what you said, right? They weren't Americans.
2 of them were Austrians, and one of them was Middle Eastern. I don't remember which country. I think from Iraq, but I can't remember.
Okay. But it wasn't Americans.
So, no Americans.
Okay.
Taylor Swift canceled all 3 of the concerts she had planned in Austria. She was like, nope, 0 tolerance for that. 0.
Yeah, as she should.
Yep, she canceled those 3. But I think she still, like, she did her other concerts. Like, she has that whole tour going, so. Anyways, that was weird news. I was like, that's bizarre and super horrible that people would do that.
That's wild. I saw a news article on another famous person this week, and that's Matthew Perry. And I didn't realize this, but there's people like being prosecuted for like playing a role in his death.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of interesting.
I wondered about that when he first died because he'd been clean for so long. Yeah. I was kind of surprised that, not for so long.
Yeah,
but
and like I didn't like super read into the details, but basically it was like, I'm trying to remember, there's like 5 people total. I think 2 of them were his doctors that like wrote him an insane prescription for ketamine. And then his I'm gonna have to take that part out, but I'm trying to remember the name now. Oh. And then like his personal assistants, they were also like in on it with the doctors, and they basically were trying to like see how much money they could get off of him for drugs to get him back in the game.
That's horrible. Using somebody's addiction and health against them like that. That makes me sad for him.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't intend on him ODing, but they definitely plotted against him to try and get him to pay a lot of money for drugs again. So that's a bummer.
Garbage people. They're definitely at fault a little bit for what happened. I was so sad when he died. He was my favorite Friends character, Chandler.
I know. I feel like he was everybody's favorite Friends character. It was like real rough. So
yeah.
Anyway, there you go. Maybe he gets some justice for D-bags that thought. Yeah. There was like apparently like a text that I was like, this is just so rude. But there's like a text from like one of his personal assistants to like one of these doctors, and was like, how much money do you think this moron will pay for this? It was like, you guys are terrible.
People are dirtbags. So, dirtbags, I tell you.
There you go. Famous people and I guess rich people problems. I don't have to worry about somebody trying to take advantage of me because I don't have much money to offer. So
yeah, nobody knows I exist and I don't have any money, so I'm basically off the board. It's pretty great.
Yeah, we're all good. Yeah.
Good
well,
here.
today our story does not have to do with famous people. This is not even really a famous story or case. So yeah, it is the case of the Midwest pipe bomber, which I had never heard of before I researched it. And I don't think it's that popular of a story to cover, but it was kind of interesting. So we're going to cover it today. And this guy's name was Lucas Helder, and he was responsible for 18 different pipe bomb attacks over the course of a week back in 2002. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, it was. And like, yeah, we'll get into it, but this guy's real interesting. So, not much is known about Lucas Helder while he was growing up. I couldn't really find anything. Like I said, this wasn't a huge case, so there wasn't like a ton of like info except for the story itself. But we do know that he went to college, and he was described there by like professors and friends as like a good, quiet, and polite student. He did not raise any red flags. He seemed like a really like normal dude, like more on like the like better side of humanity, honestly. Like people really thought he was like a good person. And people that really knew him, like his family and friends, once this whole story came out, they said that they never would have believed that he would have been able to hurt people and or would have like laid a plan to do that. So while he was like a really nice person for the most part, at the end of this whole incident that lasted a week, when they arrested him, even though even the cops described him as being very polite and considerate, it became pretty apparent that he had like a few screws that were loose. He wasn't all the way there. So Helder was attending the University of Wisconsin-Stout in 2001. And he started out, like I said, a normal student, but as the 3 years that he was there progressed, his roommates began to note during his third year that he had become like really obsessed with death. And not only that, he started to do a lot of marijuana, which I feel like is not a good mix. His friends, they also started to have to like shrug off these spiritual monologues that Helder would go on. And like it was basically he just had all these really weird ideas. And I guess they just probably chalked it up to the marijuana. That would be my assumption. They're just kind of like, yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know why he's talking about weird spiritual crap and death all the time, but it's probably that weed. So
it's the stuff. I just think yeah, you're welcome. I just think personally, when people start going on spiritual rants that are socially unacceptable, that is a sign that something is wrong.
Yeah, like they're losing it a little
even
bit.
if it is just marijuana, which I don't think marijuana causes people to all of a sudden start getting spiritually ranty, but I would still be concerned. Like, that's a red flag. Something is mentally unwell.
Well, yeah, it's weird for sure. Normal people don't do that. So, also during this time, he became really, really obsessed with Nirvana and specifically Kurt Cobain. So,
oh, great. What a great role model.
I know.
I know.
You're like, dude, that's America not has the like, one.
Yeah. I know America has like an obsession with Kurt Cobain, and that's great, but
he's a weird dude.
OD, so
yeah,
I don't know.
He had a lot going on, so not the best role model, especially for someone that's already like kind of losing it a little bit.
Edge.
So he started his own grunge band, which he like based off of Nirvana, but they called it Apathy. It was a 3-man band, and they actually ended up releasing an album in 2001 called Sacks of People. He's like, sacks of people. Okay.
Like yeah. Santa has a sack full of presents, but
yeah, I don't.
Sacks full of people. Is that what we're going with?
Yeah, I don't even know what that means, but really interesting. I listened to like snippets of this album and I was like, okay, this is a weird vibe. So maybe I'll post that sometime this week. You guys can get a little snippet of like
soundgram.
what he was doing. Really weird stuff. Anyway, so they were really only successful though, this band, on a local level, and they wanted to release an album, but they had to fund it themselves. Like nobody was gonna like help them with this because they really weren't all that great. And so with their own funding, they released that album, Sacks of People, and the other members of this band.
Every time you say that,
Sacks of People.
I don't know what it means.
I don't know what it means.
But it's just weird. It makes my skin crawl a little bit. Like, what?
Well, it like makes you think like, it makes me think of like zombies, you know, like you're like that's a sack of a person, you know, like you're not really like a person, it's just like a sack. I don't like that word now. It's freaking me out.
Yeah, I don't like it either. Also, there's a New Girl quote that Nick says about not wanting people to feel like they're trapped in a sack. And that reminds me that word's actually kind of funny sometimes.
There you go.
So, sorry.
Yeah, positive spin. I like that. I was getting all creeped out thinking about people just like walking around like sacks. I don't know. I don't like it. Okay. But these songs were really like, they had weird lyrics in them, and Helder, he would be the one that wrote most of the songs, and his other two bandmates, they were basically just like, I have no clue like what we're talking about in our songs. It's just a bunch of weird mumbo jumbo that he's writing, but we're singing it. So I'm sure it probably, I couldn't find like the straight up lyrics like typed anywhere like you can with popular songs. And honestly, when he was singing, I couldn't understand most of his lyrics because I was like, man, I want to know what he's saying, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Anyway, but apparently I'm sure it was probably some kind of spiritual mumbo jumbo again. So by the next year, 2002, Helder became really obsessed with astral projection. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah, you can tell me what it is. I think I know. I'm thinking of the movie Doctor Strange.
Oh, okay.
Where he like projects his spirit outside of his body.
Is that what they call that in Doctor Strange? They call that astral projection?
I think they do. Or maybe that's just what I thought astral projection was.
No, because you're actually pretty close. So, like, I'm surprised because it, like, sounded, like, kind of vaguely familiar, but I'm not, like, a huge Doctor Strange fan, so I didn't, like, remember that. But, yeah, like, astral projection is actually, like, it's also known as soul wandering, and it's basically the concept that your soul can leave your body and basically have, like, an out-of-body experience, which, yeah, is, like, what happens in Doctor Strange. There you go.
Yeah. He's like dying, but then his spirit is like fighting people on a different plane.
Yeah. So, and what's actually crazy is like when I was looking this up, this is like a belief that's like in a lot of different cultures and like religions throughout history. Like it's actually a pretty common thing that people believed could happen. Like the Egyptians believed it, and there's like groups among people in the Amazon. The Hindu religion believes this. Anyway, really interesting stuff. But he got into it. He was like full belief that your soul could leave your body and have a like out of body experience. And so he kind of became obsessed with this idea and a bunch of other spiritual mumbo jumbo. And he ended up writing his own manifesto, which he mailed in to the Badger Herald, which was the newspaper for the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So not his own school. I don't know why, but he sent it to another university. And in this, he like, it's like a 6-page long manifesto, and it literally sounds like what it is. It sounds like a bunch of like hippie stuff that some spiritual guy wrote when he was like really high. That's basically who this guy was at this point. And so it's just like a bunch of really weird things. But in this manifesto, I was like reading through, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. This guy's totally crazy. He like talks about how like death is not death, but simply your spirit leaving your body to move on to the next plane of existence. And basically it's just like a like forever astral projection.
Like you and just float out there amongst the stars forever.
Yeah, but like that you can live like a second life without your body, which is like not that far off from a lot of religions. Like that's an afterlife, right? I mean, a lot of people believe that your spirit moves on into some kind of an afterlife in a lot of religions. So like first, like not crazy, okay? But he claims that no religion, other religions have it right. That he's understood what he's come to understand.
He's the only one on the planet who knows exactly what's going to happen after everybody dies.
Yeah, no, he was. Yeah, 100%.
He's real special.
So he also had some really wild theories about dreams. And this is like a whole page or two of his manifesto where he talked about how important dreams are and that nobody realizes what dreams are. And his like version of this was basically that dreams are like a reality within your body that you're like in complete control of, and where you can like accomplish anything. And also dreams are like key to understanding your reality. I don't know what that means, but that was his belief.
Like a weird mix of like lucid dreaming and something else.
Yeah.
Like you can do anything.
And that's what I thought of when I was like, okay, so you're talking about lucid. Yeah. But anyways, so he's got that stuff going on. And he also, the most concerning part of this manifesto said, I'm taking very dramatic. I gotta start that over. I read that wrong. He said, I'm taking very drastic measure and attempt to provide this information to you. I will die/change in the end for this, but that's okay. Paradise awaits. I'm dismissing a few individuals from reality to change all of you for the better.
Well, that's ominous. Dismissing people from reality.
Like, okay, you're really like on something, dude, because
you're taking this a little far.
Yeah. Dismissing them from reality. Okay. So on May 2nd, 2002, Helder decides that it's time to put whatever plan he has into action. And he leaves campus. His roommate found that he had left a note for him that said he was going to go to Madison and party for the weekend. And so this was like pretty out of character for him. He wasn't really like a super social guy. And also he was like really reliable. He had a job and he never missed his job for anything. So his roommate was like, that's really weird. And also his roommate was like, he only ever leaves campus to go home to visit his family. That's it. He never goes anywhere else. So he's gone.
Out of the ordinary.
Yeah, and it's weird. But nobody except for his roommate knows that he's left at this point. So the next day, which would be May 3rd, at 11:20 a.m., there's this woman, and her name is Mrs. Bryce Worling. And she's coming home, and she stops off at her mailbox to collect her mail. And while she's still sitting in her car, she reaches out, gets her mail from her mailbox, and then she notices that there's something strange further back in her mailbox. So, like most people would do, she reaches to remove the unknown object, which, unbeknownst to her, was a pipe bomb. And upon her moving it, it explodes. Luckily, she was not killed. She was just severely injured. She had injuries to her face, forehead, arms, hands. And then she also had like a tooth knocked out from the force of the explosion. And both of her ears ruptured.
So she's like deaf?
I really didn't find anything on it afterwards. I was kind of like, I don't know. Let's Google this really quick.
I feel like you can recover from that, but I feel like your hearing loss would be substantial.
It says on the Google that a ruptured eardrum, also called a perforated eardrum, can heal on its own within a few weeks to 2 months.
Okay, so it's just like, depending on the severity, it can heal.
Yeah, but then it also says that if it's bad enough, you'll like sustain permanent damage. Not like that you'll be deaf, but just that you'll be like hard of hearing.
Okay.
So, but lucky for her, she did not die. So that's good. Actually, not to spoil anything, but he doesn't kill anybody. So that's like the happy part of the story. There is no death in this. Yay. No death here. When police arrive on the scene, they find remnants of the pipe bomb, along with the remains of this typewritten letter. And all they can gather is that it contains anti-government statements. He's basically going on some kind of a rant against the government. And so, crazy enough, that same day, May 3rd, 2002, 7 more pipe bombs were found in Iowa and Illinois. And 5 more of the bombs would explode. 2 of the bombs never detonated. 2 more people were injured, one of which was a postal worker, but luckily, like I said, nobody was killed. And most of these bombs were found with typewritten letters that were all containing anti-government statements.
So this guy, I'm just, what? What a plan to dismiss people from reality, I guess. I just don't understand. Okay. It's weird that he's like anti-government when he was like all talking about spirituality and nirvana and like the marijuana and stuff. And then all of a sudden he's like super anti-government and like whatever. Super weird to me that he'd switch tracks like that without really giving any like previous indication, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like in his manifesto, he like kind of briefly covers like the government and that they like spread lies, but it's not like the point of his manifesto. So it is kind of weird that he's like all of a sudden like the government is evil. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Strange.
What was really interesting about the location of these bombs is that it created a circle. So even though it's between 2 states, yeah, it makes like almost a perfect circle.
They weren't random. I was going to ask that. Like, did he just randomly stop in random neighborhoods and just leave presents for people?
Well, what they would find is it was to a certain extent random, but he had a design in mind for the pattern of where he was setting these bombs off.
Okay. How many were there again?
In total over the week, there was 18.
Okay. Dang. That's a lot of pipe bombs.
Yeah. Yeah, he was really going to town. How did nobody
like notice that he was making all these pipe bombs?
Well, it doesn't take forever for them to notice. On May 4th, the following day, through like May 6th, so in the next couple days, they find 8 more pipe bombs in Nebraska mailboxes, and lucky for people, none of those exploded. So I don't know if he was getting careless in his bomb making and he was like not as good as what he was doing in the beginning, but like none of these are detonating. He's just putting bombs and leaving evidence behind. Once again, similar notes were found on these bombs, anti-government crap. And this second set of bombs also made a circle. Any guesses as to what he's trying to do? If it makes
are these circles overlapping?
Nope, they're side by side.
Is this going to be a smiley face situation? Because that seems like what's happening. Oh my gosh, what an idiot!
Smiley face with his bombs.
That is the dumbest thing ever.
I know, is it not? I'm like, what? Why a smiley face? Because what you're doing is good? I don't know. I was like, a smiley face?
What a weird guy. What a dummy.
And that's actually one of his other names. They sometimes call him the smiley face bomber. So, anyway.
Out of all the symbols in the world that you could have done, like, to represent your manifesto or your anti-government stuff, you chose a smiley face?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, he did.
What a weird
Very wild. So at the beginning, so like I said, it was May 4th through May 6th that they find the second circle of bombs. So then on May 4th, Helder's roommate, he gets a voicemail left on his answering machine from Helder that tells him he's not going to be home for a few more nights, and then says, check the news and act accordingly. I don't know what that means.
I don't know.
Neither did the roommate. He was just like, okay, cool. And at this point, obviously, it hadn't occurred to him that like Helder was connected to the bombings. So,
I mean, who in their right mind would think like my roommate is out trying to kill people? That's why he's gone.
Especially like a really well-mannered, like polite human being. Like you'd never connect those dots.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, yeah, he has some trouble with pot, but like he just is like the spiritual weird guy. He doesn't kill people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think anything of it.
No, I wouldn't either. So he doesn't think anything of it. He just thinks I'm sure he was like, man, he's high again. Anyway.
High somewhere, doing something.
Leaving me weird voicemails. So actually on May 6th, they found 2 bombs that were not. So there was 6 bombs in that circle. And then there was 2 bombs that were found outside of that circle. And one of those bombs was found in a mailbox in Salida, Colorado. And the other was found in Amarillo, Texas.
Just so I'm understanding, the first set of 8 bombs was the first circle in the smiley face, the first eyeball. The second had 6 instead of 8 in the circle, the second eyeball. Mm-hmm. And there were 2 random bombs in Colorado and Texas.
Colorado and in Texas, yes.
I'm caught up.
Which, if you're thinking about a smiley face and you look at a map, which I will post to the socials, you'll see that it is starting to form the smile part of his smiley face.
Okay.
So, luckily though, these 2 bombs, neither of them exploded either.
So he just like had a whole batch of duds.
Basically.
8 bombs, and then some of them worked, some of them didn't, and then his next batch, like the gunpowder was faulty or something.
Just apparently.
Like, all right.
Yeah. So, also on May 6th, this poor roommate, he's really roped into this. Helder's roommate finds 2 messages on his answering machine from Helder's adoptive father, whose name is Cameron. And Cameron had received a letter from Helder that stated in the letter that he believed his parents were strong enough for his beliefs, and he had made mention of pipe bombs. So basically he had been like, Mom and Dad, I think you're going to back me on this, and I am making pipe bombs. And so
really delusional.
Helder's roommate calls Cameron back, and Cameron reads him the full letter, and they both become pretty convinced that Lucas Helder is the one that is doing these mailbox pipe bombing. That night, Helder's roommate and his friend, they go into Helder's room to see if they could find any evidence like that would clearly link him to this. And lo and behold, they find makings for bombs, including shotgun powder and a bunch of other stuff, and receipts for them in his room.
Wow, this guy really covered his tracks. He tried super hard not to get caught.
Yeah, hard. He just was not super on the ball. So the roommate and his friend then call back Cameron, Helder's father, and tell him what they found. And so Cameron then calls the police and gets a hold of Lieutenant Wendy Stetler, and he tells her that he received a letter from his son earlier that day, and he was really disturbed with the contents of the letter. He tells her that he believes his son is responsible for the series of mailbox bombings, and to further prove this hypothesis, he mentions that the letter had said a lot about death and dying, along with a lot of like anti-government statements. And Helder also referred in this letter to an elaborate plan that he was carrying out that he was willing to die for or go to prison for. And according to Cameron, the letter literally contained the words, "mailboxes are exploding," which is pretty, like, he's literally just describing his crimes.
Just confessing.
And it's like, this is like a really, like, it's not just like one letter. This like letter consisted of more than one pages. One was a typewritten page of a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and he signed it down at the bottom. And then he had a 2-page handwritten note that he signs down at the bottom. And then he had a single-page cover sheet titled Explosions, and a 6-page article with the title Life on Earth, which he also signed. So he has basically just admitted to his crimes to his father. And his father's like, hey, police, I know exactly who you're looking for. I know the man.
I got you.
He is my son.
Solved it.
So at the end of that 6-page letter that was included to his father, he said, if I don't make it through this ordeal, if the government doesn't realize I can help, then I'll have to get out of here for a while. And so they were kind of worried he was going to take off. That, like, at this point, nobody had any clue he was making a smiley face. So they really didn't know where he was going. It seemed pretty random at this point, and they felt like they had to get a hold of him before he continued bombing or, like, just dipped. In an effort to help the authorities catch his son, he described in as much detail as you can get what Helder would have been driving. So he described that the car would have been a 1992 gray Honda Accord with a Minnesota license plate, and that the plate number would have been EZL873. So now all they had to do was find the car, because that's what he's going to be in. Yeah. So the police take this information, they kind of run those plates, and what they find, what's actually insane, is that in the last week, he has been pulled over 3 times already by police before they even realized who he was. He was first stopped in St. Edwards, Nebraska at like midnight. And the officer that pulls him over walks up to the car, and before the officer says a thing, Helder looks at him and is like, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. And the officer looks back in confusion and is like, I'm pulling you over because you're speeding?
What do you mean you didn't hurt anybody?
And the officer was just like, hey, that was weird. But, like, he was just, like, driving out in the middle of nowhere. So he's like, I don't see anybody hurt. Okay, you're just speeding. You're fine.
I feel like you haven't hurt anybody yet. Search his car. Like, you can't just, like, somebody's like, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. Search the car.
I don't know. Apparently, it didn't seem like he posed enough of a threat for that to be a thing. So
I don't care if it's a 16-year-old blonde female driving the car. If somebody says something like that, you just search the car just to be safe.
Or just ask some follow-up questions. But I don't know. I don't know what the circumstance was. I don't know what was going on. But yeah, he just thought it was strange and just kind of like, okay, we're moving on. So then next he was pulled over in Watonga, Oklahoma. And this was for a failure to wear a seatbelt. Nothing. He didn't act weird on that one. He just took it and moved on. And then the day before this, his father called the police. He was actually pulled over for speeding in Fowler, Colorado. And that officer reported that he was very nervous and had watery eyes, like he might start crying. Can you imagine having committed a huge crime and then you get stopped 3 times by police, and every time it's just for a traffic violation, but you're like freaking out?
You're like almost crying and trying to keep it together, and
you're like,
not confess.
Okay, they've caught me this time. Nope. Just like, just stop speeding everywhere.
Yeah, like, just follow the law and you won't get. But I guess that's not really his concern.
No, he wasn't overly concerned with that. So basically now they're looking to pull him over for a 4th time, or find him a 4th time, so that now they can arrest him. So at this point, they put out a APB for 21-year-old Luke Helder. I still don't get APBs. What is an all points bulletin? What does that even mean? All points bulletin. That's what APB stands for.
Yeah. I don't really understand it. Should we look it up?
I know what it means. Like, I know what an APB is. I mean, everybody knows what it is, but why do they call it an all points bulletin?
What's the difference between an APB and a BOLO?
Let's do some research.
It's a radio message, an APB, sent to police officers in specific areas. And a BOLO,
what's a BOLO?
Is an all points bulletin is a radio message sent to police officers in a specific area about a person or vehicle that the police are looking for. They're used for high priority crimes and may include instructions to arrest suspects. And then a BOLO is an abbreviation for be on the lookout, which you knew. It's a warning or instruction to law enforcement or the public to be aware of a criminal suspect or activity.
Okay, so like an APB, does it go out to the public?
No.
Or is it just for police?
It just says police on here.
So maybe that's the difference. BOLO is like everybody. And then maybe the APB is just for police. Okay, well that makes sense, I guess.
I'm going to see what Reddit has to say.
Reliable source, Reddit.
Apparently they're really similar. Like, everything I'm saying is like they're basically the same thing. I don't understand what the difference is. Anyways, that's the best we can do.
APB for just law enforcement, BOLO for everybody. We'll go with that. Okay, so they put out an APB for him, which means I guess the police are on the lookout. So, May 7th, Helder, this is the next day after he's called in, Helder contacts two friends by phone and admits responsibility for the mailbox pipe bombings to them as well. So there is like nothing out there that would ever be able to convince anybody that anybody else is doing these, because he's admitted it to at least 3 different people at this point. So luckily, this is the same day that he is apprehended by police. They find him 50 miles outside of Reno, Nevada, and they find 6 more pipe bombs in the trunk of his car. Once he's taken into custody, he then reveals to the police that he was attempting to form a smiley face. And the police report once again that he's like a really polite, like well-mannered kid. Like, he's calling them all sir. He's like really nice. He's just literally bonkers. And yeah, he was actually diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, and that made him incompetent to stand trial. So instead, he was admitted to the Federal Medical Center in Rochester, Minnesota. He was reevaluated in 2013 to see if he could stand trial for his wrongdoings, his crimes, and he was once again found incompetent. So he remains there as of today in the Federal Medical Center. According to the Mayo Clinic, schizoaffective disorder is a mental health condition that is marked by a mix of schizophrenia symptoms, such as hallucinations and delusions, and also mood disorder symptoms, such as depression, mania, and hypomania, which is just like smaller versions of mania. So basically, he was schizophrenic and also depressed, basically.
Dang, what a combo.
Yep. Too bad. And that landed him out of prison. He didn't go to jail, which I guess means he's lucky. He did hurt like a total of like 4 people throughout all of that, like we mentioned. Yeah. But and pretty severe bad injuries, you know, like they weren't, I mean, they're bombs, so
it's like literally the last thing I'd want to get hurt with. Like, yeah, I'll take literally any other kind of weapon. That would be fine.
Well, it's also because it's like it affects like your whole self, not just like one. It's not like a gun where it's like one part of your body is like hurt. It's like your whole face. It's rough go.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
So, anyway, there you have it.
It's weird to me that he was all over the place. He was in like 15 different states, it felt like, I'm sure that's an exaggeration, but
was
he was
probably
everywhere.
just like, well, actually, one of the police officers that pulled him over, the one that said that he had like, he was nervous and like watery eyed, he like complained to that officer about like being really tired and like needing to go sleep it off at a home. I was just at a home motel for some reason.
A home
motel. We're gonna put hotel and motel together in one word. Home motel. In a motel, he wanted to sleep it off, and I like can imagine he probably just like not sleeping for like 48 hours straight. Yeah, because he didn't want to get caught. He was just like driving around.
Yeah. Which is kind of smart, I guess, but not really because he confessed to like 4 people.
Yeah. But no, it's like pretty clear that he lost his marbles because yeah. He didn't like seem to really care. Like he said, he didn't really seem to care if he got caught. He was just doing what he felt was what the people needed. And I guess that was planting bombs in the form of a smiley face.
He needed mailbox bombs to dismiss people from reality. That's what he needed.
Yeah, he did not do it. He did not achieve that. So lucky for everybody.
Glad that nobody got like really dead. That's good. At least.
Yeah. Yep. There's your different case. Not murder. Attempted murder.
Just explosions everywhere.
Yep. Just a weird guy with weird ideas. So there you have it.
So weird. Well, that was an interesting
Midwest pipe bomber that you've never heard of.
Midwest smiley face pipe bomber, dude. Great stuff.
So I guess your tip of the week is don't stick your hand into any mailbox assuming that it's safe. There always could be a pipe bomb in there. You never know.
Stay frosty, y'all. See you next week.
He had become like really obsessed with death. And not only that, he started to do a lot of marijuana. He had become like really obsessed with death. And not only that, he started to do a lot of marijuana.